Good morning, everyone. My name is Allison Flaro, and I'm here with Julia Correa. We're both project managers at Dialogue Insight. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to get started now with our webinar on relational marketing essentials in the mobile era. As you know, Dialogue Insight has been doing email for a long time, and we slowly introduced SMS. But this year, we added more channels like Facebook advertising, push notifications, and other channels that have changed how we manage mobile marketing. What we're going to talk about today is how we can capitalize on these channels and continue to be as close to our clients as possible. So just a little housekeeping before we get started. Please feel free to ask your questions in the GoToWebinar question box, and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. Today's webinar is being recorded, so everyone will get a copy by email following the presentation. Okay, so if you take a look at the GoToWebinar menu, there's a section called Poll. We put a little survey question in there for you to answer. So the question is, do you have a mobile strategy? And I'll give everyone a few minutes to answer, and then I'll share the results. A mobile strategy is how a brand positions itself in relation to the changes and advancements in consumer mobile technology. I don't need to tell you how important mobile is and go through the statistics. Everyone has at least one mobile device. Actually, half of the population in North America have more than one device, so it's 2 devices and up. Mobile changes how we consume information. Years ago, if we wanted to read our emails, there were 2 ways, either at work at our computer or at home at our computer. Now we can access the information we need anytime and anywhere. These days, a lot of people don't even have computers at home. They use their phone or tablet at home or on the go. Most of their digital consumption happens on mobile devices. They listen to the radio, they check their email or social media feeds. That's why it completely changes how we approach our communications. We can't just send a message and assume people will read it when they have time, because most people will read it as soon as it's delivered. You all have a phone, you all have SMS. You get your emails on your phone. As soon as you get a message, it's a reflex. You just open it. It gives a different vision of how information is consumed, but it also gives us as marketers the opportunity to speak differently and to respond to the needs of the people. For those of you who have been with us for a while, you'll recognize our non-official motto, which is the right message to the right person at the right time. It's the right time that becomes most critical at this level because the person is constantly moving, and mobile not only allows us to consume the message as soon as we receive it, but it also allows the brand to understand that person, where they are, what they're doing, and potentially send them an even more relevant message at that moment in time. Okay, I'm going to close the poll now, and we'll take a look at the results. Oh, we have 100% no. Okay, so that makes this webinar even a little more interesting for everyone. So this next slide is showing the companies that have the highest value on the stock exchange throughout the world. We can see that as time advances, it's the digital companies that take the lead. If we look at 2016, the top companies are the ones that are completely digital. Often as we position ourselves as a brand, we can say that technology more or less touches us, that technology isn't really in our sector. But these companies don't just make phones, websites, or online stores. It goes much further than that. Take Amazon, for example. They recently launched Amazon Go, which is a cashierless grocery store where you scan a QR code to gain access to the store. Then you select everything you need, put it in your bag, and just walk out. Amazon processes the transaction and sends the receipt to your phone. Or Google, who recently launched their own insurance system. These are all elements that touch domains that are more traditional, which makes it like almost every sector is touched by technology in some way. These companies are taking advantage of the mobile technologies to offer a service that responds to people's needs. So for you, if you're more of a traditional company, you just need to position yourself to capitalize on the technology to ensure you stay relevant in the eyes of the consumer. Now, it's not just a question of sending a responsive email, but to make sure you're reaching the person regardless of the channel and regardless of where they are. The key is to take into consideration the consumer mobility, the flexibility, to send the right content using the channel that is relevant to that individual. To some people that might be Facebook, to others it might be SMS. There are a lot of options out there, as you can see on this slide. I think we could update our motto to the right content to the right person at the right time with the right channel. I'm going to pass things over to Julia so she can talk about analyzing your current situation.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I apologize if I'm a bit, my voice sounds a bit weird, but I kind of have a cold. So before you think of your mobile strategy, you need to look back at what you currently have or you currently are doing. So all of you said you don't have a mobile strategy. So let's go over some of what is considered or that we can already be doing. So your current actions, what you currently do and it's in place in terms of mobile. Are your emails responsive? Is your website mobile friendly? Do you have an app? Do you use push notifications? This gives us a clear picture on how the brand communicates with the consumer. And how do you measure it? What is happening with your open rates and click-throughs? Are they going up or are they going down? How do you measure if a campaign was successful? Are there any improvements, quick wins or long-term changes that you need to implement? If your objective is to drive consumers to your store, are you able to measure the journey from email to store? If yes, great. If not, how do you start measuring it? And this is not something that you can do overnight. No, it requires time to think things through and proper implementation. But a quick win would be to make sure your website is mobile friendly, and so are all your email communications. What does your brand need? Why does your brand need a mobile strategy? Well, as we've mentioned, everybody has a mobile phone or a smartphone. And now that we know what we have and how we measure it, so we need to determine or make sure we clearly understand what are our objectives. What is the objective of your overall marketing campaign, your newsletters, your SMS campaigns, Facebook ads? How do they all relate to the brand main objectives? And how do you achieve them? If you want to add mobile to your strategy, the conversion aspect of it takes center stage, which is a big change on what we had before, the traditional mass mailing, when we would send the same message to everyone, which will be a kind of a direct translation from the past print. So when we talk about channels like SMS, push notification, or even Facebook ads, these are very personal, and as such shouldn't be used just to send information like an email, but to really create that conversation with the consumer. And who you address that strategy, to whom are we talking to? And here's where you have to be careful not to prejudge your audience. We tend to think of millennials when we think of mobile, but mobile touches everyone, even if they don't quite understand how that happens. But everybody's touched by the new technology. And while it's something normal for the younger crowd, the older people find it relevant, and how it, in terms of how it can make their lives easier. The SMS with a flyer or a coupon alert is something that older people, or actually anyone, can relate to. The key here is to determine how to talk to all different audiences so that your message is relevant to them. And how do you approach this multi-channel? So which channel to use to talk and to who? Well, you need to be able to determine the best channel to communicate. And this can be, again, quite complex to manage. You will be able to do this by using a preference center or behavior analysis, and that requires some work to put in place. An example of how complex this can get is when you log into an app, let's say to your banking, which is easy to access. It has all your banking info. Then for some reason you need to call your bank. And now you have to answer a lot of questions. We understand that there's the security aspect to it, but it's a bit of a disconnected experience. So ideally, you should connect all the channels and the information that is managed in different systems. It is important to make that the teams that have contact with the client are aware of the different channels you use to communicate and that they are prepared to answer using the proper channels. This is going to be critical. So we live in a time of constant change. However, once your strategy is determined, keep that in mind. Print copies of it to remind you and your teams what is your strategy and why it is important to be alert, to stay connected to what's happening in the market in terms of technology, but not necessarily jump on it right away, as it may not be relevant to your brand or your consumer. But it's important to be able to foresee where are we going and what do we need to do to keep your brand relevant. We have now determined your strategy. How do you implement? Here are a series of examples we have put together for this presentation that may help you. So the first challenge when it comes to mobile strategy is acquisition. You may want to send SMS messages to your clients, but if you don't have their cell phone numbers, can't really do it, can you? So how do we start? How do we go about getting the information we need? There are two types of clients here that we will be targeting. The ones you already have some information, so those are the ones in your database. So your goal there is to update, to add more information, to enrich that profile. And there are the leads, the contacts that you don't currently know and you want to add to your database. So how do we focus on mobile? There are 4 different techniques related to mobile acquisition: text to action, content optimization, check-in, and goodies. We'll go over each one and give you precise examples for each case. The first one is text to action, and as the name indicates, the user needs to text to have or to do something. The first example is Adidas. This is a campaign they ran in the US where Adidas had billboards all over the place with items that you could buy by texting the item code. Then a chatbot would open to get your address for shipping. While this was an extremely cool and innovative campaign, it was a disaster as nothing really worked. And in this case, the chat box didn't have all the rules. So if the person would say, I want the red shirt instead, the chat box wasn't able to recognize that request. The user would have to say, I want the ABC234, which was the item code. So they missed the human aspect of that conversation, of that interaction. And to add insult to injury, the inventory was not ordered according to the campaign. So people would order an item and it would not be available. So within 48 hours, the whole campaign was canceled and they had to remove all the billboards. So that brings us back to the importance of making sure that your teams are prepared, that you have thought about all the aspects of a conversation and you are ready to answer. Nonetheless, we have to admit that was a great marketing acquisition campaign, strategy, and a great tactic, just badly implemented. The next one is kind of the same principle. It's a campaign for the Canadian Red Cross where you text to donate. The interesting aspect of that is that all the financials for this campaign is not managed by the brand, the Canadian Red Cross, but the telephone companies, which means you don't need to collect any payment information. The information on the donor is then shared from the telephone companies to the Red Cross, among other reasons, to issue the tax receipts. Simple, and it's easy to donate. Text the code for the amount you want to donate and you get a simple thank you. If the donors had to answer a whole bunch of questions and enter credit card information, for sure they would lose a lot of people. We have to, people don't feel comfortable in entering financial information, credit card information online. And when it comes to mobile, it's very important to have in mind that it's a small screen. It's not that great to type, not that easy. So keep it simple and make it easier to the user to take an action. This was a campaign in Montreal by a bookstore called Librairie Indépendante, which consisted of the consumer texting to download the first chapter of a book they would have scanned the cover. There was also a button, buy, so that if you liked what you read, you would go ahead and purchase the rest of the book. If you wanted to buy the real book, the app, and that's the great part of it, of this campaign, using your phone geolocation feature, you would detect the consumer location and then indicate the closer Librairie Indépendante with the number of available copies. So it's just perfect, right? This campaign used the mobility aspect very, very well. Download the book and find a bookstore. It allowed Librairie Indépendante not only to acquire new customers, the phone number is now in their database, but also engage customers as it provided a personal service, find where to buy, and if the book was available based where the person was right then. Then our last example is a Drive to a Store campaign from the Metro grocery store at a hockey arena in Laval where the Canadiens farm team play. The campaign was to display a number to text on the big screen. The phone number was then saved in order to get a coupon to be used at any Metro store. Consent to send the client a message was granted when we received the text because it was the client that was sending Metro the text. The main objective of this campaign was to drive traffic to the physical stores. And these strategies, all these strategies allow you to make that first connection with the client to a future mobile campaign while using traditional tools such as the big screen on the hockey arena or the billboards. The retention of these new clients will depend on how you use this information. If you just keep sending them content regardless if it's relevant or not, chances are there will be a big erosion. However, if you use the data to send relevant information, XYZ product is on sale this week, and that is the product a consumer often purchases, chances are this customer will hang on to your app and to your brand. Another strategy will be to ask for consent to send a newsletter. You may not get a huge number of subscribers, but that should be a much engaged database, which is way better than a huge database with a really low open and click rates. So now I'll pass it back to Allison.
Thanks. Excuse me. So the technique is, next technique is optimizing your known contacts. You're already sending communications to these contacts. You can take advantage and do acquisition from your other channels at the same time. So this was a print campaign by Aeroplan that announced a new text message service where you could subscribe and receive personalized offers. You just had to give them your phone number by texting a certain number. It's a simple technique that can be used for a lot of initiatives or by many channels. There was a contest connected with this one, but that's not what's important. The idea is to advertise the channels that you do use. If you let it be known, then there will certainly be people who are interested and will subscribe. Another example could be like when you take your clothes to the dry cleaner and they could text you or notify you by another channel once it's ready for pickup. It comes down to thinking about what you could offer to make life easier for your clients. Then advertise that the service exists and there will already be quite a bit of acquisition at that level.
So the next technique is check-in, which is probably the most technological use of the mobile phone, and it uses the geolocalization on your phone to determine how close you are to a determined place. An example is when you pass by a store and automatically you get a push notification from the store. The requirement to be able to use this type of strategy, though, is to have an app. This is a very easy to put in place. It uses the geolocalization feature of the mobile phone. But what do you do if you don't have an app? You use Facebook. You only need, and it's easy, you only need to have a Facebook account and enter the exact location of your store on Facebook. Then it will detect when people are passing by your store and send you a push notification. This type of communications allows you to send relevant information at the right time. But again, don't overuse this feature, as you don't want consumers to start blocking your messages.
So the last one is goodies. It's a technique that's as old as time and has been done on the web forever, but it also translates to mobile. It's the contest, offering something in return for their information. Now there are a lot of examples, but we just kept one because it's pretty standard. If you want to get a prize, send a text to this number, and then we capture the number of the people who text in order to get the acquisition. There could be a lower retention rate in this case, but you could retain them longer if you send out a message right after they hit submit that thanks them for participating in the contest and lists the usual communications with the benefits of being on the list and asks them if they're interested.
So engagement strategies allow you to keep that contact you have just added to your database to stay with you. So you need to use the client information in a pertinent fashion. In the consumer's point of view, it's really what's in it for me, meaning what is the benefit to the consumer that you communicate with them via push notification or SMS instead of email. Keep in mind that mobile is a much more intimate excuse me, way to communicate. So it's crucial to have a message that is different from the one you send via email or print. If the consumer doesn't find the information relevant, they will block the message and you will lose that contact. So recently a client of ours claimed that they tried SMS and it didn't work. Considering the known stats, and you can see on this slide, we decided to get a bit more details to help them figure out what went wrong. Excuse me. Their campaign ran for about 2 months and consisted of sending the same message to the same group of people over and over again. The results were no one replied to the campaign. There was a huge number of people that blocked the messages, and it's really a no-brainer. He used it incorrectly, because that's what happens when you use mobile to do mass mailing.
Now this channel really has to be used to give something to the client. We have a couple of examples like this one from Saint-Hubert. They, like many other companies, give you a link to fill out a satisfaction survey at the end of your meal. But on top of giving you the little paper where you have to take it home, log into your computer and fill it out, they offer the option to scan a QR code right there at the table, and it opens the survey so you can give your opinion. I don't know if it works like this, but if the client is unsatisfied, it could send a notice to the manager who could address the problem right on the spot. Give what the person wants to receive. For example, if I download the application from CBC News, then it's probably because there's a certain type of news that I want to receive. Now, obviously, I'm going to open the application to read the news, but if there's a certain type of news that I'm interested in seeing, maybe I could set it in my profile so that I could receive that type as a push notification. This is something CBC News does very well. Another example that we often share is from Centre Dentaire La Pointe, where they can confirm your appointment by SMS. The person can reply and say, yes, I am available, or no, I'm no longer available. The important thing about this is it's really a one-on-one personal message. We're not talking about a promotional offer like a discount on cleaning. And this last example is Domino's, where you just have to text them an emoji of a pizza and then we'll make a delivery. This is all based on your preferences, so your credit card and your address is already linked to your account. All you have to do is confirm and receive your pizza 20 minutes later. It doesn't work in Canada yet, but I'm sure it will get there soon. We read a study recently that said when we shop by voice using devices like Google Home, we buy 5 times more than that if we were shopping on the web, because it's so much easier by voice. So interactions increase when we diminish the friction. No matter what type of service you offer, if we're able to simplify the order or the ordering process, then we're able to serve the client even better. It's the same thing for insurance. The battle for insurance is to get a quote in the shortest time possible. It's that kind of mentality that we need to have with mobile. How can we reduce the friction? How can we make this as easy as possible for the user? These channels aren't only attached to purchases. It doesn't matter what type of industry you're in. If you offer services or sell products, there's always a way to inform the client and create a relationship and conversation with them to have an extremely engaged clientele. Everyone here offers different services, but what you have to think about is how you can improve the client relationship. What can you offer as a service that will reduce the friction between your service and the client? And from there, mobile will probably surface because the location of the person will probably be a factor. Recently at a conference, the question was asked about how CAA could improve their service, and the answer was that an intelligent car could already be connected and let the service know where they were located. Mobility can also serve in cross-channel. When you're setting up your campaigns, you probably won't just do a web push or an SMS campaign. You can do a complete campaign where the different channels reference one another. So for example, after the conversation that happened with SMS, you can capture some information and use it in the satisfaction survey that you're going to send by email. All of these elements must benefit from these tools to create the best campaign possible.
So now let's look at some of the good practice when using mobile. When we write the content for a mobile campaign, it's not the same as an email campaign. So use one column only whenever possible. Some stats show that the email with just one column the emails with just one column are the ones that perform better, most likely because they display better in mobile. Be personal. And by that, we don't mean just good morning, Julia. Use the information you have about the client to offer something that is really relevant to them, to show them that you know who they are and what they want to hear from you. Remember that we use our thumb, so make sure to use big font and that the CTA, the call to action, is big enough. Short sentences, once again, because I'm on my phone, you need to have a content that is a thumb stopper. People will stop and then read more about it. Call to action that contrasts. By that we mean probably put on a white background and that are not simply click here, but instead buy, call. And most of all, think mobile first when designing, when programming your messages. Remember that most of our consumers will see your messages on mobile. There you go. For both SMS and push notifications, you need to be clear and relevant in all your communications. For example, a message that is sent every Thursday to tell you that the flyer is available, well, it's okay the first 2 times you get it. But after a while, that's just not longer interesting because it's always the same message. On the other hand, if it was a coupon or highlighting that one of your favorite products is now on sale this week, chances are you relate to that more. So it's really the personal side of your relationship with the consumer that you need to link to this message. Our own experience, personal experience has shown that personal messages do perform better.
Thanks, Julia. So the next steps will be to put in place a plan that works for you and your contacts. If you need help or advice, please feel free to reach out to your account director or project manager. We can help you with strategies and also with testing the personalization. So that's the end of our presentation for today. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. If you do have questions, remember you can contact your account director or email us at info@dialogueinsight.com. Have a good day, everyone, and thanks for joining us.